From LEGO's weird obsession with poop across 3 different sets, to making builders thread a string through a fabric sail, LEGO's made us do some pretty crazy stuff over the years. So I found not only the weirdest, but also the most rage-inducing instruction steps I could find. And the best place to start is with the Rivendell set from LEGO Lord of the Rings. This set just dropped a few years back, and even though LEGO should be able to make a set without pissing anyone off, they unfortunately cannot. The most annoying part about it is right there, front and center, the roof. Those diamond-shaped pieces aren't part of some special roof piece made for this set. They're 1x1 tiles, which means you have to place every single one yourself. This is nothing new though. There are loads of sets where LEGO tells us to place a ton of pieces, including some you probably haven't heard of, which I'll get to later. But these tiles have their own special problem. As we can see, not only are these pieces turned to the side, but they're also spaced out, so lining them up would genuinely take forever. But don't worry, LEGO knew we would mess this up and showed the tiles turned in all sorts of directions in the instructions. And to fix it, they told us to shove a 2x14 plate in between the pieces to line them up easier. Not gonna lie, this is actually a pretty good method. It's just crazy that LEGO put it in the instructions. But something they've done that's way crazier is making sets with illegal building techniques in them. I'm not talking about the vintage ones from before these techniques were illegal. I mean real, modern-day sets that completely break the rules. And what's even worse is that there are enough of them that Brickset made an entire web page about it. The page has 5 sets listed, 2 of which are the Saturn V, which got re-released with the same illegal technique. But they all use the method of wedging plates or tiles between studs on another brick or plate. The most recent set that broke the rules was the Justifier from LEGO Star Wars. But what if I told you this webpage isn't up to date, and that there's a new set that broke the rules again with a different technique? You might think I'm lying, but the Ford Model T does just that. The technique it used involved headlight bricks, which are notorious for being used in illegal building techniques. The person who found it was none other than the GOAT Tiago. He broke down the problem very well and showed us just how bad this technique really is for your bricks. He even got the set early and did his review before it came out, but from what I can tell, LEGO didn't change anything. The technique is used on step 167. I know guys, stay with me, lock in here. Tiago showed it in his video, and when you compare it to the online version, the steps look identical. LEGO changes online instructions whenever they get an update, so clearly the problem is still here. But this topic is a little heavy, so let's get back to the weird stuff. In my video about rage bait instructions, I talked about how LEGO told us to straight up pour studs into the top of the ship in a bottle set. But what I didn't know was that this wasn't the only time they've done this. It's also in the bonsai tree set, but it's a little different. In this one, every piece you're supposed to pour is in bag 3, but for some reason, they're all in 4 little bags inside the big bag. So LEGO tells us to take these 4 bags out, open them, pour them back into bag 3, then pour them into the base of the set. Voila, you now have 200 loose 1x1 tiles in your bonsai tree, and all you had to do was open 5 bags. This is obviously very annoying, but it's nowhere near as annoying as something you do in the Endurance set. This set is based on a real ship that sailed the seas of Antarctica from 1914 to 1917. LEGO did a phenomenal job recreating it, but to make the accuracy this good, they had to use real cloth for the sails, which meant the builder had to do one of the most frustrating things ever. You start building the nose of the ship on page 390, and if you hadn't noticed yet, LEGO is telling you to thread a string in between a piece and lock it in place. It gets worse though, because 3 pages later, a sail is attached to the string and magically floating in mid-air. The string isn't attached anywhere on the other side yet, because that comes on the next page, where you have to route it through 5 different points on the masts. You even have to do this again with another string a few pages later, but luckily the rest of the sails get mounted with connection points, so you don't have to route all 10 through string. However, according to New Elementary, these strings actually put a lot of pressure on the build and pull the masts forward, which is definitely not good. But even worse is that this isn't the only time LEGO's messed up sails. They dropped the Pirates of Barracuda Bay set in 2020, which has cloth sails just like the Endurance, but they have a completely different problem. In a review from Bricks for Bricks, the builder says they saw someone say that you can use an iron to flatten out the sails when you want to attach them to the ship, which really made me scratch my head. But then I thought about it. This set can be built in two different ways, and the first way it's built in the instructions is with the sails furled. LEGO literally tells you to roll them up on page 160, but when you build the second version, the sails are extended, and after reading that review, I realized they aren't as flat as they look in the instructions. And there are actually two main reasons for this. The first one is because the sails aren't packaged flat in their bags, so there was never any hope of them being flat to begin with. But the second reason is what Brothers Brick said in their review. After being rolled for only a day or two, the sails were pretty wrinkled. This seems like something LEGO would address in the instructions, but they didn't. So the weird instruction step here is that there wasn't one. You were just supposed to fix this sail problem on your own. But instructions get even weirder with the addition of modern day technology. LEGO made a system called Control Plus in 2019 as a replacement for the beloved Power Function system, and people were really not happy about it. The biggest reason was because instead of remote controls, Control Plus uses an app and Bluetooth, which is way less fun than an analog remote control. Regardless, LEGO released it anyway, and when the Liber Excavator, the first set to use Control Plus, came out, the instructions were literally telling people to stop and whip out their phones mid-build. I scrolled through all 740 pages of the instructions online and found 4 separate times where LEGO did this. You can find them at steps 234, 485, 692, and right after step 1000. But if you notice, they're not completely identical. They're all here to show you which part of the set is being connected to the app. I honestly don't even understand why LEGO was showing this, especially since you don't actually connect anything to the app until you're done building. But as weird and irritating as it is to see a phone in LEGO instructions, it's even worse to see the same steps over and over and over. In the Rage Bait video, I mentioned a few sets with this problem, but one that I absolutely have to talk about is the Taj Mahal. From the outside, it doesn't even look like it'd be that bad until you look at the base. It's pretty much identical all the way around, and considering this set has almost 6,000 pieces, it means you're in for a pretty rough build. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw in a review from Bricks for Bricks. They said that bags 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all the same, and when I checked the instructions, they definitely weren't lying. This is when I realized that it's not just the base that's brutal, it's the entire set. I mean, just look at this picture. But if you thought the Taj Mahal, Captain America's shield, or any other set was repetitive, it's because you haven't met the LEGO Eiffel Tower, which not only has one of the highest piece counts of any LEGO set ever, but is also the second most repetitive set ever, behind the world map, of course. Just by looking at it, you can tell this thing is gonna be an absolute nightmare, but it's the reviews for it that made me realize just how bad it really is. Not only is most of the set the same pieces, but according to Adam White from Brick Fans, there was a step that was required to be done 140 times, which made his heart sink. Unfortunately, Adam didn't show this step in his review, and not gonna lie, there's no way I'm scrolling through all this, so y'all are just gonna have to believe Adam. But of course, he wasn't the only reviewer with a problem like this. At the end of Rob Payton's review on Brick Fanatics, he said that all the repeated steps makes you wonder if it'll take 2 years to complete the build, and even gave us numbers so we knew what he was talking about. Add that to this post on Reddit with 3.4k upvotes, and I think it's pretty obvious that this set is unbelievably infamous. But repetitive LEGO isn't always bad. Sometimes it's weird in the funniest way possible. possible. Ever since LEGO made the round 1x1 with horizontal swirl piece, which is obviously what everyone calls it, they've had a weird obsession with poop, and sometimes they don't even use this piece to represent it. The best example of this is obviously the flushing toilet in the City Garden set from Ninjago, but I actually want to show you a more underrated one in the Paranormal Intercept bus set from the Hidden Side theme. When you see how LEGO advertised the set, it looks like this porta potty isn't anything special, but this is the Hidden Side theme, and this porta potty can transform into a haunted porta potty and shoot poop discs out of the door. The instruction step that shows this is possible is absolutely hilarious, but it almost makes too much sense for it to be the weirdest one. An even weirder poop moment is in the Vintage Taxi set, which was actually a gift with purchase set. This is the only picture of it on LEGO's website besides the pictures of the box, and if you had to guess where the poop would be, where would you say it is? Hold on to that guess and take a look at page 8 of the instructions. For some reason, the designer decided the trash can needed a random piece of poop inside of it. It adds absolutely nothing to the set besides comedy, but there's still one more poop moment I want to point out. It's one we all know, the piece of poop under Dwight's desk in the Office set. This is a really famous Easter egg, but have any of you seen what it looks like before the desk is actually there? You put it down in step 22, and it's literally just sitting there in the middle of the floor. And LEGO even pointed an arrow at it with another picture of the poop so you don't miss your mark. As funny as this is, I want to tell you about those times where LEGO made us place way too many pieces that I mentioned earlier in the video. And the best place to start is the Dagobah Jedi training diorama from LEGO Star Wars. When you see this set from above, it's pretty obvious what part of the set has too many of the same piece. But the whole thing only has 1,000 pieces, so it can't be that bad, right? Well, unfortunately, over 20% of those pieces are for the swamp, and the worst of it are on steps 42 and 43. Step 42 has you place 39 plates, which isn't too bad, but then you get to step 43 and you wonder why you even bought the set. 177 tiles is way too many to place all at once, but the thing about LEGO is that it could always be worse. You see, even though there are a lot of them, these 216 pieces are pretty easy to place, but some LEGO sets make you build a chain, and when that happens, you realize just how bad it can really be. A perfect example is in the Haunted House set from the Icons theme. The house has an elevator, so of course you have to build the chain that moves it up and down. This happens at step 440, where you have to use 149 chain pieces. Clearly, this is less than the tiles and plates in the Dagobah set, but putting these chain links together is a lot more difficult than you might realize. They connect with two really small notches, and since the chain needs to be sturdy, the links aren't very flexible, which is what makes them so difficult to put together. But there's something even worse than this in the Loop Coaster set, because the chain for this one is made with two different types of links, and step 452 is the worst of it. The main part of the chain uses 222 regular links, but to connect it to the set, you have to build another one with 33 different chain links. The wider links are what actually holds the coaster in place, and that's the worst part about LEGO chains. They're always 100% needed. But the worst part about LEGO instructions in general is that some sets don't even come with paper copies. The first set that did this was the Creative Toolbox set from 2017, but according to reviews online, most of, if not every set in LEGO Mario doesn't come with paper instructions either. Instead, LEGO pushes people to use the PDFs online. They probably did this to see how the public would react, but it didn't end up getting that much attention. The topic as a whole wasn't really talked about until 2024, when LEGO made a survey for insiders asking them how they felt about paper instructions. After it was done, it was obvious that people wanted them to stay. So even though there are some sets out there without them, paper instructions aren't going anywhere. But what's the weirdest or most rage-inducing instruction step you've ever done? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.